Hello, it is Mike, the Erudite DM, and I'm here with a familiar face for some of you who follow my channel or possibly his channel. It's Tim Shorts of Gothridge Manor. Say hi, Tim.
Hello.
Hi, Tim.
Hello.
So, Tim and I talk quite frequently, and before we just started the video, we were talking about how I got to know Tim and Joe and Flint and some of those guys from just doing what you're doing now, just from watching on YouTube and checking out sometimes live streams and sometimes other videos. So I know some of you are going to watch this who probably know Tim and his reputation as a longtime player and creator in this space. And maybe some of you know me from my recent stuff I started earlier just this year, talking about primarily Shadowdark, but I have other videos on other games and other systems too, so I spread it around. But we're going to talk, hopefully briefly. We don't need to drag this out, but I'm really intrigued on an aspect of duet game playing. And if you're not familiar with it, a duet game is where it's a GM and one other player. I play solo dark and I played solo games before, and I really like that idea, but this is a notch above. And Tim, it's funny because when I started playing in junior high,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize it. I was playing duet because my best buddy Jay, he and I
A lot of us were,
were
yeah.
us. And yeah, we had 3 or 4 other guys that might play on the weekend, but
Right.
after school, it was just the 2 of us.
Sure.
We were doing this stuff in 1980, 81 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really intrigued by it. I think other people will be too, as an alternative to how they play whatever, D&D, Castles and Crusades, DCC, Shadowdark. Really doesn't matter, the system. So first off, before we jump into duet, tell everybody. I know you're not the kind of guy who likes to. You're not a boastful type person, a bit of an introvert. You don't like to brag, but tell them how great Tim Shorts is.
Let's see. Started my blog, Gothridge Manor. That's where most people might know me from back in, I want to say it was 2009. So it's kind of the beginning of the, when I wasn't there at the very birth of it, kind of got on I guess you maybe call it the beta stage of it. And when it was when the blogs were very strong, and then Google Plus came along and it really flourished from there. So,
yeah, you can see it there on the screen, and
yeah,
it's what GothridgeManor.blogspot.com. You can find that.
Yep.
Also,
there's a lot of good blogs around it too. So I have a blog roll around. That's a lot of people come to my site actually because I have a pretty decent blog roll, and I divide it up by alphabetical order, so they're a little easier to find and whatnot. A lot of good content creators there.
Yeah, and of course his YouTube channel, Gothridge Manor. If you see my stuff, that we do a live stream on Monday nights very often. Gothridge Manor is also broadcasting, or he's hosting, and I'm linking to his broadcast. We do it back and forth, so depending on got availability. And before we get off this, I wanted to show it real quickly. So there is the Patreon account. I don't have one. I thought about doing it. Do you like the Patreon pacing in the?
I have been doing Patreon since the very beginning. I was probably one of the alpha users for Patreon. I mean, I don't think it was a month old and I got connected with them, and I've been doing it ever since. There was a little kerfuffle with Apple last year about payments, because I prefer my Patreon to be if pay per creation and not pay per month. I don't like the subscription based thing for my Patreon, because if I don't create anything that month, why would I don't want to have anybody divvy up $5 or $1 or anything like that. And so the Apple Pay was basically trying to bully Patreon into making everybody a subscription based thing, or they wouldn't carry it on their Apple store. They would not carry. Yeah, it's just real bullshit move. But they somehow went to court, and the last thing I knew, Apple wasn't allowed to do that. But I almost think though Patreon still wants to go that way. I'm not sure. So I'm hoping they don't do that, because then I might have to change it a little bit the way I do things. And so everything that's on there, guys, if you go to my Patreon, everything I have on there is for free. There, you don't have to be. I think you have to be a member now because now they have the free membership. I can't just put it out in the public anymore because when I go to share stuff, it gives different options, and one of the options I don't know if it's public or not. I'm not really sure, but I write short adventures, micro adventures, kind of thing, and then micro locations, and I do the NPC cards on there. But you can download everything for free on my Patreon. And if you want a physical copy, like this month, I'll be sending out a copy of. I got to create some more, but Shrine of the Mother and Destroyers, like a little zine adventure. It's an
Cool.
8, and then there'll be another because I'm behind a little bit, so there'll be another adventure of that and an NPC card. So this will be a little fat envelope going out this month. So
Yeah, Tim's stuff is really, really tight. I know I've used some of it. I've used one for a solo game.
mm,
I can't remember the name of it now. I'll think of it in a second. But yeah, there's a lot of great stuff on there. If you're a GM, and I assume most of you listening are, you don't have to sit there with pen and dice in hand. Some of you enjoy it. I do. I get on a run, and then other days I'm flat out zero creativity, and I just want to look at somebody else's idea and go, oh, this is easy to play. I have everything I need, even the map. Let me jump into this, and I've got a session taken care of. So anyway, Tim knows what he's talking about. He's been in the hobby. Oh, sorry. He's been in the hobby for a long, long time. Unlike myself and people like myself who took a break for a while and then came back to it. He never found anything better to do. No, that's not how I want to word that, is that? I guess.
yeah, you're probably not wrong at the same time, though.
No, it was a bit of a joke. It was a bit of a joke. But anyway, I learned stuff every time I talk to Tim and Flint and yes, even Joe the lawyer. He's a character, but I learned stuff from him. He's a very smart guy. And these guys have known each other a while. So let's talk about duets then. And I'm going to screen sharing off. I really don't have any presentation to show everybody. I just have a handy dandy little Shadowdark thing. If that doesn't,
there you go.
Instead of staring at our facial hair and my bad haircut or whatever. So, hey, you have a different hat on tonight. I just noticed.
This is one I usually wear.
It must be warmer there. You usually have your crew cap.
Beanie. Oh yeah, it's warmer out today. And
how is he wearing thing?
Yeah, this is my stealth nerd hat. Like Greg would identify it in a second. And some of it's funny when the people identify it, they're like, "Yeah, you're one of us." Yeah.
Well, let's do this, Tim. Why don't you set it up and we'll take it away with duet play. Define it, talk about the origins and how you discovered it, please.
Well, I didn't even know it was called duet play until Paul came along, actually. I just called it one-on-one gaming. I know, that's, duet. I guess, I'm thinking of, Peaches and Herbs or something like that.
Kind of TTD and Elton John. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Captain and Tennille or something.
It's a very simple concept that really allows a GM and the player to take a really deep delve into campaign creation and character creation and develop a rich background or, relationships with the world and NPCs. And it just gives you that time, not only just to interact with somebody on a one-on-one basis, because you're not getting distracted by, I shouldn't say distracted, but you're not having to share time with other people's motives, other people's ideas. You can really funnel down where, when I'm gaming with Joe, with the group and everything, I've always it's almost like a kid on who's ADHD. I always even though I'm talking to you, Mike, I gotta keep an eye on Joe.
Right. You never know when he's lurking somewhere.
You don't know when he's going to wander off into traffic or something like that.
A great car story from 1978 or something.
Right. But it just allows the player too to really explore what they really want to get into without having to worry what somebody else wants to do or worrying about taking the spotlight too much, or they can just get into their character and they'll get these rich, hopefully if it works out well, relationships with characters. you know, because one of my favorite things about them is making these characters interact with NPCs to the point where they care for them, and I don't have to do a adventure hook. I just have to say so and so is having issues with this, and boom, they're on it because they don't want that NPC. They want to help out that NPCs just because they have this rich relationship with them.
Right, right. Well, it seems like a much more intimate, kind of intensive type play because
It is.
nowhere for that player to hide. They have the spotlight all the time, and that's a
Yep.
good thing. But it
Yep.
might be a curse too for a little bit of more introverted person or a slower player, thoughtful, pensive person. I guess you go back and forth with the GM, can sense that and pick it up for a while.
I'd almost think it's a benefit for those kind because it is only you and there's not a whole group.
No
It's just
pressure for the next person.
no, there's no pressure. And then like if they need to take a break or if they need to uh um like reset or something. I've never really had that issue. Usually we lose track of time and then we're like, oh shit, it's already 10 o'clock, you know, kind of deal.
That means you were having fun.
Yeah, yeah, we just lose track of time. But yeah, I think for someone who is um has anxiety or some sort of social anxiety with other folks and are not sure about stuff, the one-on-one, I would call it duet since that's a term, duet gaming would be a benefit for them and really allow them to get into their character how they want without having to worry about maybe what somebody else might think.
Well, and you've done it with different types of players. What about on the
Mhm.
other end of the spectrum? I want to say somebody like me because I simply talk too much and I crack side. I talk too much during games, and I know I'm.
I find that most gamers are kind of most of the game. I mean, we got Joe, you know, so Joe's rah, he's obnoxious. Um, and then you got Paul. Paul's definitely more what would I call Paul?
Collect
More
one.
he's very introspective with his characters. You
Yeah,
know, he
yeah,
likes getting into them and developing them. But pretty much everybody I've done it with has enjoyed the experience. Um, yeah, and I haven't found I can't even remember a time where I didn't have a blast doing it too. I mean, it's fun for me too.
yeah, yeah. And that's an important thing. Is I often
Yeah,
a lot of my videos is about, hey, make sure everybody's having fun. GM,
yeah,
players,
absolutely.
all is one group, right? And that's something we do on our Monday night thing. I feel.
Right.
Um, uh, so with the duet game, what was my let's talk about the GM for a second. Let's go there. Challenges for the GM. Having played with you and then watched you before that, I know you're a good GM and you're flexible. You can think on your feet.
Hmm.
I know you come into it with a game plan and some notes, not overly prepared, but I'm guessing prepared enough.
Hmm.
You can also take things in different directions, probably like most
Right.
better GMs, right?
Yeah, I think most GMs. I
So
mean,
yeah,
I
so what
would hopefully do
steps
that.
should a GM do for this game versus your regular group if you're just going to be focused on one person?
Hmm.
Are there any differences in the prep?
Well, yeah, because they're going to be just basically character centered instead of party centered in some ways. You know, so it kind of simplifies it in that way.
Hmm.
Um, you're not going to have to worry about so many different tangents that the players are going to go on. You kind of know what's going to go on, and then I think the biggest challenge for this is you have to prep a game now for a solo person. So you've got to prepare your campaign like that. And in some ways you almost have to not have to. It's going to become more of a role playing session than a combat session most times.
Yeah,
You know, and you're not going to be a dungeon delver all that much. You're going to be an individual, but that's where it comes into play. Where if they're going to do dungeon delving, set them up for some opportunities with, getting some friends or getting some halflings. Find a mercenary from maybe they have a brother who's a mercenary who kind of stops down every once in a while to, and helps them out with something. Maybe, hey, maybe that's what they do instead of, like brothers who come up here and go hunting. These guys go, dungeon delving. Hey, let's go dungeon delving. I'm up here for a week. Let's go
You
do that.
do see it as a way to co-create really one-on-one with the player, whereas it's
Absolutely.
harder to do with a big group. Not impossible, certainly, but
No. I mean, because the way I DM, I have you guys create as much as I do, pretty much. You guys definitely have uh, molding capabilities of what's going to be in my campaign and what's going to, like, when Paul, just for the fun of it, like, just to use an example, not that it was a duet game, but Paul made what was he called? Doom Singer.
Doom Singer.
Yeah, and I love the concept of it, so I integrated it into my campaign, so it has a little pocket, place in my campaign. And when you do that, when you're doing the one-on-one, you can really, really go to town on that kind of stuff. You can get into some depths that you normally wouldn't in a party, and then it also allows the player really to have a huge hand in its development at the same time. So they're really invested into the game also.
Yeah, you can feel that at the table too. It's palpable, right? Somebody's like, "Oh, that was." They never say. I've never heard anybody say it, but they know that was an idea they brought up, or a side comment they made, or a question
Yeah,
they asked, and they know you're running with it, and they just feel really good about that. A little bit of an ego stroke that.
absolutely. Like years ago, Greg decided to play a cleric, and he made up this god named Puce, and he was the god of silence, and I forgot what the other thing was. And the way he role played his guy, and I love the whole idea of it. So now I have the god of Puce. So I basically took the Stoic philosophy, and that has become Puce's mantra and different. And now that's integrated into my campaign, and that was all because Greg wanted to play, this cleric, and I just love the concept and how it got developed through play, and that's my favorite stuff. I love it when players bring something to the table that I want to put into my campaign.
And I think that's what people are talking about when they say that's the way to develop backstory. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's one thing to roll a table. This thing has a page with a roll, but it
Yeah.
says, you were a pirate and a thrall for the Vikings or something. It'll be two sentences or really short. I looked all the way through here, by the way, and there was nothing about
Woo.
gaming at that time. So I did go
Well,
back
nothing about what was in
to
it.
duet gaming or one-on-one gaming. I learned
No, probably not. No, not in there.
but I did not see it mentioned. But yeah, I like that idea though of building a backstory that has some feeling of time. That there was a time before we started playing this game.
Absolutely.
You
It's
know,
one of my biggest tools I use for a party. So, because I plan on starting a new campaign, I'm hoping sometime soon or whatever.
I'm hoping.
But whoever is going to be involved with my campaign, I always like to do a 1 or 2 session with them duet gaming and allow their character to breathe and develop on their own. So say, instead of like you all meet in a tavern kind of thing. Um, Maybe what ends up happening is maybe I'll use a tavern as a setting,
Hmm.
and they'll interact, but they'll have an interaction with the tavern on their own. They'll have their own personal relationship with the bartender, the owner, maybe some mercenaries or hirelings that are possibly on the wall, and they've already got that. So when the party gets together, maybe you'll have a relationship with the bartender that's like, yeah, he's kind of a dick to me, where the other guy, he maybe helped this guy get out of a jam, and so they've kind of got this weird bond that you don't know about. And so there's a lot of maybe little intricacies of background that the party won't know, but it'll make the interaction between the party a little bit more um, organic and less, just sort of like you meet at a party and everybody agrees to go on an adventure kind
Yeah, I
of
mean,
thing.
imagine if your player comes into it after one session of duet with you, the GM, and
Mhm.
they already have a rival in town. Because I assume you're
Right.
role playing, you're doing town play,
Oh, absolutely.
dungeon delving, but you're building up opportunities for them. But what if they already have some guy who hates their guts, across town, or they have
Absolutely.
a friendly, blacksmith, and somebody else that they bought some information from wound up drinking with me. So I've got an ally over here, an ally over there, an enemy there.
Hmm.
And they bring that to the game and mix it in with all the other players, and man, you've got a really, this rich recipe for a campaign to just kind of jump into it right away.
Yeah.
I love
Like,
that idea of mixing it up. I know in my 5e campaign about a year ago, there are certain kind of characters that have these breakout opportunities. So you're talking about doing this to build it up at the beginning of
mhm.
the campaign and launch into it. What about in the middle of the campaign where you do a one-off? Like I had a warlock, and
Mhm.
she was getting into a thing with her patron who never paid any attention to her until she did something nice and pissed him off.
All right.
And I was basing him on the guy from Hereditary, Payman. If you saw that scary ass movie,
I haven't seen. I know which one you're talking
yeah,
about.
freak you out. It's pretty
Yeah,
scary, but it's
I
based
heard. I
on
heard
the
it's good.
whole
Yeah.
Mesopotamian. I can't say the word Mesopotamian devil or demon or something named
Oh, very cool.
named
Yeah. Then
Payman,
I
based on
would.
a real mythological character.
Oh shit. Then I think I'd really like it. Then. Yeah.
Tolkien's mythological. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, so I couldn't do this at the table with her. I mean, because there's things like if you're part of a thieves guild or like
Yeah.
Paul's assassin in our Monday night game.
Hmm.
Assassin going to do? Go tell everybody, "Hi, I'm an assassin. Nice to meet you." That's not the kind of thing you drop out on a group of people you just met.
Right.
The warlock is having to go do some hideous, nasty ass ritual thing. They're going to go do that in private, and the only
Right.
way I know to do that is break out. Hey, come an hour before the game if you're playing in real life,
Hmm.
or maybe easy enough to do on
I did that with
Zoom
Paul
or Roll 20.
this past campaign when he was introducing Hobbs. He had his thief
Ah,
that he did, and so in the middle of the campaign, I did a couple of things with him. And the nice thing about that one too is I got to introduce him because he was part of a thieves guild.
yeah,
So I got to introduce him to his I guess superior in the thieves guild who kind of assigned him jobs, and then he got to know his crew, like the crew that was in the immediate thing. So he knew, and he got to know the personalities of each one. And then he had a friend, a friendly rivalry with this other guy. Like they're kind of like friends, but they were always trying to beat each other.
yeah.
One of those deals where it's not that I got it, it's that I got it before you. which, that kind of relationship with that. So it was a lot of fun doing it. Now, would that come out so much in the party? Maybe not, but I might sneak in maybe one of his crew. Like I might say, you guys wake up and Hobbs isn't there, and then say you look out the window, so you see that Hobbs talking to this one girl, and they seem to be kind of in a heated conversation. Um, but then she hands him a package and then stomps off. But won't explain it, and it'll make perfect sense to Paul, and kind of deal. And it just adds that other element. And then you guys can inquire about it. Paul can,
That's a
even though it might,
point, Tim, because I think good games have an element of we do these things together, we collaborate, but each one of
right,
our characters they're just like little copies of real humans of all.
right,
We all have things we don't share with our friends. We
yeah,
all have private things we're ashamed of. We all have somebody, or we all might have somebody you're in love with and they don't know. There's
hmm,
private things that you keep about yourself
absolutely.
from everyone, even the people you delve into dungeons with.
Joe had his last campaign where he had 3 different groups there for a while, and I was in. I guess there was only 2 groups. There was the big group where everybody was playing in, and then because I couldn't do it on Saturday nights, so he and I just did a duet game. And he info dumped my ass big time. I mean, he was giving me
Yeah,
I'm taking notes, drawing Venn diagrams, and have a timeline. I mean, he put so much information. It was difficult. But then the group ended up breaking up because of actual personality issues and everything. Just the gaming philosophies didn't jive. So the old crew of like Tenkar and Greg and Rob joined me back into they came into my group. Well, me, and I would through that whole campaign, I withheld so much information that I had. It wasn't because I was trying to keep it secret so much. I would give them information my character thought would be pertinent for them so they could be helpful. Because my character, while he was very quiet and very um, outwardly humble, he was very manipulative, and he had delusions of grandeur that he was doing these grand things. He ended up doing some pretty important things, but I didn't want to give out the information because my character understood information was my richest currency. So I had to keep it. And plus, I knew Rob's character was a big blabbermouth, and if I told him anything, he would just tell it to the next person walking down the road. He did that twice during game, and I just was like, I just smack in my head, going, "Oh God!"
Got to remember the things that are secrets.
Yeah.
But some
So
people don't. Some characters don't.
no, and it's fun. It's fun. And so I got to play this character, even though I kept the secrets. It never interfered with the gameplay. You know, I wasn't trying to be some edge lord or some edgy character. It was just a tool my character used. But I mean, if they would have called me out on something, I would have probably just shared the information. Maybe they saw me do something or wondered why I did that, and they would have said, "Hey, why are you doing this?" I probably would have just told them just to keep the cohesion of the party intact and everything like that. And
I do have a theory about these games, and duets would play into it. I think the fewer number of players, if you're playing with 5 players, is different than 3 players, is different
yes,
than one duet game, and is different than the solo game. And the closer you get to the duet and then the solo game, the more story building and
yeah,
emotion and intensity and things you
that's what I was saying. You do a lot more role playing than dungeon crawling.
5 people at the table. I did this Monday night with you guys. I was trying to play a priest because I have a theory about priests, how we're playing them possibly wrong.
Hmm.
Being a medic or something, or a nurse instead of a person with this great religious conviction that you tell any and everyone all the time. Uh,
Right.
so I was trying to play it a little different. And I know 2 or 3 times I looked at me like, "What the hell is he on tonight?" Or "What is he?"
No, I saw. Yeah, you were kind of giving you're trying to convert and do some little from
I was
conversion.
I was
And
literally walking around the neighborhood the day before, and I'm thinking, what would this guy's okay? Madeira the Covenant is his deity, law, justice.
mhm.
He needs a tagline. What tagline would he use?
He needs it to.
Well, marketing, advertising,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
brand, my priest
Yeah,
is a brand. But I think the fewer you get, the more you can inject things like emotion and
yeah,
tragedy and sorrow. Try to do sorrow with 5 people at the table in a beer. And our game more or less is a beer and pretzels game, which I'm fine with.
yeah.
It's all because we know each other, fairly well, and
Right.
it just takes on a different kind of fun. But
Hmm.
I don't know. I think that the smaller the group gets, the more you can play around with ideas. If you find that fun, some people may just think that's the stupidest thing they ever heard, and that's fine too. But I know we're throwing a lot of ideas out. I don't want to,
We
if
are.
somebody's a new GM or something and watching this, their head might be spinning. Just take it slowly. But
Right.
it's a
No,
hobby.
I think for
Try
a
some
new
things. Try some of
if
this stuff. What's your advice for the
for a
new?
new GM doing this, I think it's a fantastic way to start because if you mess up as a GM, it's cool because there's just one person there and you can just like reset or just kind of roll with it or fix some things.
Absolutely.
And I mean the best thing for them I think would just write out get some NPCs that might work for you. Get some names figured out. Get some few locations. It doesn't have to be a lot. I mean, really, you can kind of do the rule of three, and that's usually good for uh, a can or a session. For a one-on or duet session, you just kind of come up with maybe 3 different locations, come up with 3 NPCs, 3 interesting things. Just come up with, and that keeps it very concise and focused. And but it also gives you options. And then the great thing about three, did you ever hear the what is it called? The 3 body problem or something? You ever hear
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
So when you add that third element in there, you never know how they're going to interact. So that's the cool thing. Even though it's 3 and it sounds like, not that much, it really can blossom into just a ton of different things.
Yeah, there's a perfect number in triangles and pyramids and in the number. I mean, it just works out so well in
It
so many
does.
things we do as people in design and so forth. Um, Yeah, that's good advice for them. Try this stuff out, and the
Yeah,
reality probably is like you and I were suggesting. At some point in your gaming experience, maybe when you first get into it, you're probably going to wind up playing some solo these days, or you might be playing
yeah,
a duet game because
yep,
you can only get one friend or your spouse or your neighbor, and that becomes your regular game at first, and that's perfectly fine. And
yeah,
it's a lot of fun in a lot of ways. I don't want to keep you too long, Tim, but I do want to touch on one other idea, and that
yeah.
is the idea or the necessity for some level of game balance when you're designing something for the duet game. Do you feel necessary in that, or do you want them to know that there be dragons? Don't do stupid stuff just because you're in a one-off game.
Right.
I'm not gonna make it easy for you.
For that, I mean, I'm not a big GM on game balance. I kind of I detest game balance.
Right.
Let's just say that. However, when I'm doing duet gaming, I definitely it's definitely more in my mind when I'm developing stuff. But the good great thing about duet gaming is, say there's a dragon somewhere, they're gonna get they're probably going to be interacting a lot with people before they're and they're probably going to have someone have a rumor or have some information, or maybe there's a trapper who went by there and saw a big freaking footprint, or some cow that just got bit in half with a single bite. Just some ideas for them so that they know what's going on. Um and and because you're doing a duo game, they're able to focus on that task. They don't have to worry about this or that. So, maybe they're trying to help somebody out in the north. There's something going on in this village, and they're trying to get up there and help. Well, they can focus on maybe hiring the right people, getting the right equipment, getting as much information as they can, and doing what they need to do it in a succinct amount of time. Because sometimes if we're trying to get something accomplished in game, we talk about it for an hour and a half
Sure.
before we just do what we talked about the first 5 minutes, know, kind of deal.
Right.
Where duet gaming, yeah, I mean, it's a basically a conference of one, so you don't have to really bounce anything out. You just kind of come up with a plan and you run with it.
You mentioned something there that made my mind go to hireling, henchman, hireling specifically.
Mhm.
And I think in these games it's even easier when you're just playing against a GM by yourself. You don't have compatriots to worry about or companions to experiment with. Let me hire the stable boy. See if he can. If this job really sucks, he wants to leave town. I'll throw him a couple of silver a week. He can
Mhm.
carry my gear. He can watch the
Right.
mule. All those things. It's a great way to experiment with hirelings and that additional, type
Absolutely.
NPC at play. Um, that led me to one of the questions I have here is because it's a popular one today, and I don't know where you're going to go on
Mm.
it. I have my own feelings on it, but what
Mhm.
about in the duet game adding companions or pets or these type of
You mean like
yeah,
kind of like a familiar type thing, or just like a pet in general? And so,
it could be a kid brother, it could be
yeah,
again a hireling, or it could be a lot of them today in 5e love their magical pets, which
right, right.
fun of it. It's not my thing. If you want to do and you enjoy My Pretty Pony, knock yourselves out. See, I didn't
Right, right. No, I mean, whatever
feel bad.
somebody wants to play, I understand. For my game, I don't have a problem. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to have pretty ponies in mine, but I will. I don't have a problem with people having pets, because, like, in my one game, it wasn't a duet game, but one of my guys found a baby owlbear and started raising a druid, and so he had a owlbear that, and the way I did it too, so that way it wasn't just a static little owlbear. Every time it survived, I think 3 sessions, it got to go up in a hit dice, so it was growing
Yeah,
as it survived, and it got up to, I think it ended up getting up to uh full owlbearness and everything. So I don't mind that, because it also gives the GM another emotional thing to kind of manipulate, or to play off of, or allow the player to rely on as a resource for different things.
I
I
have.
mean, but
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
I was going to say to your point. Have yet to play a solo game, for example, where it doesn't start expanding, where I don't get someone to drag along with me or pay someone to
Hmm.
start doing stuff or you know, it's one of the oldest tropes in all of storytelling is the buddy story, right?
Right.
Certainly in TV and in film and everything. But it does make a lot of sense because it also alleviates. There's someone there to relight a torch. There's someone there to reconstitute you, possibly if
Right.
it's 0 hit points, or to watch the horse or to go get food. All those little things.
Mhm.
It's really tough for one person to play, but I'm not opposed to playing. The solitary ranger on a
Right.
session of adventure. That to me, that's because that's even scarier in Shadowdark and in other
Yeah.
games, right? I mean, it's scary enough
Yeah.
in D&D, but maybe a little scarier in Shadowdark because it's a
Yeah. The
cold,
systems.
cold, hard world, and if there's nobody else there to pick your ass up, man, you may
Yeah.
be dead.
Years ago, Joe and I did a very long, we did a duet campaign. It wasn't just a couple sessions. It was probably close to a year long. He had this little gnome called Snickle. It was a shot at Matt
Oh, I've heard of
Jackson.
Snickle. Yeah,
Yeah, it was a little Snickle there. And he was like this very weak, very just, I mean, he was a thief in name only. I mean, he was that
bedwetter. Be
class.
honest,
Huh?
he was a bedwetter. Be honest.
But he had an apartment, he had a job, he had friends. And it was so funny because Joe was not used to that kind of playing. It was so foreign to him and he just got so into it. And he had, and what it did is it allowed me, like you're talking about companions. It's not that he just had one companion. He would have friends that would come in and out. So he'd had his work friends and then he had his bar friends. And then when he would go home, there was a family that lived on the bottom floor. Her name was Alice and she had 5 children and she was by herself. So he knew all the children and all their personalities. And she would feed him and he would, give her a little, some extra coin. She was a washerwoman in town. And then if the kids needed anything, he'd help them out with the kids. Well, then this big thing happened in the city, and before he thought of himself or anything else, he went directly for Alice and her kids to get them out of the city, and that became a whole different series of adventures of trying to get these kids safely out of the. It was very interesting because I almost made Joe cry.
Wow.
He said it was afterwards. He goes, I was kind of tearing up a little bit after that.
But the only thing that would do that was be like taking his bong away.
Yeah, like his bong fell in the toilet with his last hit. Yeah.
That really wouldn't stop.
Well, then he would probably just bawl. Then he wouldn't tear up. He would just bawl like a little baby at that.
Poor Joe. I'm glad he's probably never going to watch this.
Oh, if we're talking about him, he'll watch it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was such a great adventure, and what he did that went beyond his character for the kids, because this character has gone through 3 different campaigns now.
Mhm.
And in one of the last campaigns, his character was doing stuff it would never do, basically to help the kids that he's grown to, just have this huge relationship with, and all this stuff. It was all the sacrifices he was making, and all the horrible stuff he didn't want to do, but he had to do it for the kids. Like he had to make a deal with, because one of the little girls got this disease, and they actually went to hell.
I'm sure
And
Joe's given a couple of girls the disease. But
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, but in this case, it was a hag, and this is why duet games are good. Had a thing that he needed, but he had to make a deal with the hag.
yeah,
And he didn't want to have anything to do with the hag. He's like, I don't want to go near that. I was like, well, she's got I forgot what it's called, a parafit or something like that then you can cure diseases on it and stuff. So, but all these kids were sick from this disease, and I said, but what she didn't tell you, I said, there's only 3 charges on it, so you got to pick which 3 kids live out of like the 10 that were going to die.
let me back out for a sec. So if we're going to do this and you're getting a campaign ready, would you do this first off with new players to introduce
Absolutely,
one-on-one, let them
because it introduces them to my campaign and my setting
can't see any
too.
downside that I can think of to let them do that, not just for
No.
learning the campaign, but also for learning. A lot of what we do with new players is they feel nobody wants to feel dumb. Oh, I forgot what my armor class is. Where is that on my sheet? Those kind of things.
Well, and the thing I don't like about campaigns sometimes is here I'm supposed to be a veteran in the city. I've lived here all my life, but then I go in there and I don't know anything.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know anything.
it
I'm
doesn't.
like,
Yeah,
it's
doesn't.
like, well, wouldn't I know? Like I do something there and then something bad happens, and it's like, well, wouldn't I have known not to do that if I've lived here all my life? Wouldn't I know not to piss on the thieves guild big guy's leg? Because I know he would send all these guys after me. So what this does is it helps me introduce the character to the campaign world, how I run things too. And I run a pretty loose game. Like, I mean, if you got something, it doesn't matter if it's in the rules. If it sounds cool, let's try it. Let's see I might have you roll, but there's going to be consequences too. Sometimes, I mean,
Yeah,
actions have consequences or rewards, depending, or both, depending on what goes on. And a lot of times, uh, especially if I'm with one-on-one, I'll have a little, sidebar of our sidebar and say, okay, so this is how I'm going to adjudicate it. Does this sound good to you? So if it sounds like it might be too tough, or if I'm being too tough, just let me know. Maybe my difficulty level I set too high. And he's like, well, I didn't think it was going to be that high. And then I'll be like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, it shouldn't be that high. It should only be a 9 instead of a 12. And
right.
that, because and it allows me to have that conversation with them, and they know that they can have that conversation with me
Yeah, I mean,
about the game, that they can question me about something maybe I made a rule on, and I might go, I'm going to keep it at a 12 because of this, or you know what, you got to, that's a good point, that is a 9, or in Joe's case I'd say, oh no, now it's a 15 because you give me lip,
I think there are lots of advantages though to doing this with a new player.
absolutely,
They
yeah.
also, like you said, now they know what they can do and how they can talk with the GM,
Yeah,
right? And they also have to learn how to take the lead because there's nobody else there.
yep,
Have to learn how to live and play and survive. They're going to feel a lot more confident in most cases when they do start playing with the
yeah.
group. They're going to feel like I'm an old vet. I've been through this before, right? I know how to do. I didn't think of
Mhm.
it. You could do a whole video just on that, on training
Yeah.
your new players by one-on-one duet play.
Yeah, years ago when I worked with kids, I would introduce them to role playing, and that's what it would just
Duet,
be duet gaming. And it was interesting because I had to break them of the one habit because they were all into Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon. It was just all card games back then,
sure,
and so they were always afraid to lose,
yeah,
kind of thing. So I kind of had to get them out of that. So it was good to do the one-on-one because they were afraid to do anything because they were afraid they're going to lose. And I told them, well, you don't you the only way you can lose is if you don't play.
right,
You will have fun. I said, if you mess up, that's the fun of it. If you screw something up, now you got to figure out the problem. So we could have those conversations with someone, and I could take that extra time on the philosophy of gaming, on trying to change their thinking of like it always being win lose situation. It's role playing.
it's not that
You
kind
know,
of. It's
it's
just
not that kind of game, but it's very, if you've never been into it before, it's very hard to get that concept into some folks now.
yeah,
And the great thing about that is at least two of the kids that I did that with, they're both in their 30s now. God, it's been so long. They're in their mid 30s, but they run games for other people at the game store now. They're the ones who run. They're the two lead gaming DMs down in our local game store. So,
interesting. Yeah, so they saw value in learning the game that way, and
yeah, they kept going with it after I was, when I had stopped working with them, and they continued on with it, and must
awesome.
have found the obsession with it and the joy of creation and having fun with it. Yeah,
No, that's great. Let me ask you one more question, then we can wrap this up because
sure, sounds good.
more time than I meant to take with you, and I apologize. But if I was going to do a group, let's say with 4 players, they've all played before.
Hmm.
Is there's an advantage or a disadvantage to doing one session, 1, 2, or 3 hour, right, duet session with each player, or should I do 2 or 3 sessions duet with each person? Or I guess it depends on your campaign,
Right.
what you want out of it, and their availability. I don't know how would
Well, yeah, that I think that's where you come into the time aspect of it, because I work full time. Everybody I game with pretty much works full time. So, you have to respect people's time. So I at least try to do one session with them and try to, especially for the experienced guys, they kind of know, what's going on. And especially if they already know my campaign, um, I at least want to do at least one with each of them, and try to get them integrated that way. Because even though they've been in my campaign, they've been in this stuff, they don't know it from their character's point of view. Because what and I don't do this as much as anymore, but I used to write up a small zine for people of what their character would know, who they know in the city. So when they went in there, they had information, they had contacts, they already had some rumors, they knew who their family was, they knew maybe who didn't like them, maybe they knew where the best cup of coffee was in Scorn,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
small little details, and then just some overviews on some of the religions and relationships with one another. Nothing very in depth. It's not like a huge huge thing.
Philosophical discussion or the geography. They don't need
No, it's probably,
more practical and
yeah, very practical and very, relatable to your character, because they might not understand it when I give it to them. They'll read it, but not quite get it. But as soon as they play that game, then they'll see the connections and everything I've given them. You
that's
know,
great advice, Tim, because I think it's almost becoming, I don't know, I don't play in a ton of games enough to say this, blithely, like I have that much experience with the wider hobby, but I suspect at least that a lot of GMs, it's becoming a bit of a lost art, the handout, right? Now,
mm,
I've written handouts. I'm guilty myself of writing the ones that are, here's the real perspective and how
right, right,
nobody cares. I had fun writing it, right?
yeah,
But they go through it. They don't remember that 2 minutes later. I think your idea is great advice in that write a handout that instead tells them immediate things that will affect their
yes,
day.
yep,
In the first 10 minutes of play.
absolutely.
Where's the
Yeah,
best ale
because
house?
that way they're making that immediate connection with what you've written. Like
Yeah,
if
you
I start
still
writing a
dating along.
history of the world, they're not going to have anything to really relate that to. But if I say Frank's your brother, and every time you wake up, he likes to fart on your head,
Yeah,
and then I start the game where you wake up with a horrible smell, and
and
you hear your brother giggling on you, and then that way they're kind of getting introduced to the world. They're seeing that stuff that I've written to them is completely relatable, and then they can interact. They know what they have in front of them is accurate, and they can interact with that with a knowledge.
yeah, I see a lot of advantages to it. I'm glad we talked about duet games again. I think I'm going to go out there and hunt for a one-on-one game someplace to add to my weekly repertoire for a while and see what I can learn
Mm-hmm.
and share with other folks on here who like to talk about Shadowdark. Or although this wasn't Shadowdark specific by a long shot, this may
No,
be D&D or
no, I mean, what happens a lot of in OSR games is they get away from the background stuff. They're like, oh, we just get in there and we just play. We don't worry about backgrounds. You're shit. You're nobody. That's fine because sometimes characters, microwave popcorn sometimes lasts longer
yeah,
than
yeah,
a
that's
character.
true. And you don't want to write up all that elaborate stuff and go too far with it.
But
My
none of it gets wasted though.
stories is some classes do require some sort of background, right? If you're a knight
Right.
first level, chances are you probably were a squire or a soldier or some sort of groomsman or something taking care of
Right.
horses. There's certain skills and things you bring into first level. Well, when did
Right.
that happen? How did that
Yeah.
happen?
I
You've
mean,
lived
if
already up to that point there, and you already knew people and you knew certain towns and area.
yeah, if I was running a Shadowdark campaign and they rolled up a background of like maybe a sailor or something like that, that's where I would start them. I'd start them on a boat.
Yeah.
I'd start them and
You're an
getting
assassin.
contacts.
How
Yeah,
did somebody become an assassin? There had to be a reason you chose that type of.
yeah, and you could lean that first kind of duet stuff on, and then of course as a GM you could kind of lean into that whatever aspect that they want to kind of go into and
Mhm.
go that way. And I think it just helps the game if your character dies in the first because I don't think just because somebody has a background though too in a duet game, you need to you don't want to do this. You don't want to fudge it. If the character dies, it dies. I mean, unfortunately, that happens sometimes. But if you fudge it, then everything they do after that just becomes less. You kind of take away the integrity of the game when you do something like that.
Absolutely agree. Everything's a learning experience. Even getting a
Yeah.
character killed, there's nothing wrong with it. We've all done
No.
it. Go on to your next character.
Right. And that's the interesting thing is you don't have to um just throw away everything. What you can do if you're in a duet game, say Chuck, your first level fighter ended up getting ground pounded by a troll, and then we can say, well, what do you want to do with this? Like we can play somebody maybe in the meet, maybe Chuck's friend, maybe he's got it that younger brother, and we can fast forward a year, maybe
Son of
his yeah, comes up, and we can still use what we've developed or and on that, and that's the fun part about it. You don't, just because you make something and it doesn't get as far as you think, that's okay. You can
If,
still use it.
if people walk away from this video and they're new to gaming and they realize for the first time that, oh, all I need is one person really to play.
Yeah.
You did something right here because you don't need 5 or 6 people. It's great
No.
if you do, but frankly, it takes a little more experience to know how to control the herd, right? With 5 or 6 people, you don't
Right.
get that right away. So, if you're starting out at this, congratulations. Go find one good, interested person that would like to play and enjoys the same kind of stuff you do, and go try a mini campaign or
Yeah.
just one session with them in a duet game.
Yeah, absolutely.
For those of you who are new to the channel, please like the video, subscribe here. I do talk a lot about Shadowdark, and I play on Monday nights with Tim at Gothridge Manor. Go
Yep.
like his channel, check out his blog, his webpage, and his Patreon, because I know Patreon means, you got to pay for this.
Nope.
It's a lot of his stuff is free, and
No, all of it is free.
yeah, so all of
Yeah.
it's free.
Yep.
So that's kind of hard to beat. Free. My stuff on my channel, airdidm.com, is not terribly expensive. I have a few zines. I just started writing this year. And
I was going to say, don't forget your zines there,
yeah,
Mike.
they're for
Yeah.
Shadowdark. I'll put it all in the comments and things. But go try a duet game, even if you're an
Yes.
experienced DM, and then tell us in the comments what you think about duet games, what your opinions are. My
Mhm.
channel so far, my little channel starting out, has been tremendously successful with one thing, and that's getting you guys to write your comments and share your ideas without arguing. I don't have any jerks on here, knock on wood. Nobody being a problem yet, thank God. But everybody's pretty cool about, hey, in our group, I've done this and had success with this. And I'm shocked how long the comments are sometimes, but that's great stuff because
Great.
it's about
Yeah.
the community and sharing these fun ideas. So, Tim, anything else you want to add?
No, yeah. Remember to go check out Mike's zines and leave him some comments, and it'll encourage this kind of content. I think it's a good idea to explore different types of game styles and different ways of gaming. And I think duet's a great way for a player and a GM to really uh, try out all these different kind of things. So try it out. It's fun. It's a blast, actually.
Absolutely. And thank you again, Tim. I learn something every time we talk.
No,
Uh,
I appreciate it, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
we play each week. So you guys have a good day or a good night whenever you're watching this, and we'll talk again soon.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.